Hi Patreon. So, I thought I would take a break and do this Q&A because, well, you can tell something is in the works. Also, I mean, I've been practicing, obviously, and my hands are a bit tired from playing the same skill over and over and over and over and over again. So, let's do February. Yes, February Q&A. If you're new here, hi. Thank you so much for your support. All of your support is going directly into my album year, and so let's answer some questions. This is the monthly thing that I do on Patreon, guaranteed for the past year. I feel like more than a year now, year and a half maybe, where I just answer every single one's questions under the post when I ask for questions, and it doesn't get edited, so this is going to be super long, so I'm going to be exercising my mouth instead of my hand for an hour probably. These are really long, so maybe grab a cup of tea or eat your meal while I answer 50 something questions. Actually, I scrolled through a bunch of them and I remember getting notifications, and a lot of you didn't actually ask me questions and just wanted to wish me a happy new year, and so that's very nice of you. Yeah, so Aolin Chongtin. I speak Cantonese if you didn't know that. I was very surprised that people were so surprised or didn't know that I was from Hong Kong. Anyway, my tripod is blocking half the screen. That's not smart. There we go. Okay, so I go from the oldest to the newest. George Leon asked, completely random and not related to anything, but have you ever considered getting a tattoo of anything? Nope. Elise, which YouTubers do you watch that aren't music related? I do not watch a single YouTube channel that's related to music, because if I do, well, actually I just don't enjoy it because I immediately think of what I should be doing or I could be doing, and that's just, my downtime. I don't want to think about creating videos, even though my brain is stimulated. Anyway, when I watch videos, I watch a lot of fashion stuff. I like to watch Vogue and some other YouTubers that aren't related at all to music. They're kind of lifestyle or fashion related. Oh, and tech. I watch, well, depending on the season. Like a few months ago, it was like a huge tech month, so there were a lot of reviews and news about that, so I watch tech channels too. Yi Zhang, what is your favorite Chinese New Year food? I don't have one, actually. In the years before my mom was living with me in New York, I just had whatever she made. I mean, it wasn't anything particular, I think. This year I made dumplings with a friend, so that was a celebratory thing related to Chinese New Year foods, but I don't have one. Terry, does playing a strenuous piece like that leave you sore afterward, and if so, worries you could have problems down the road? Please reassure you that my hands can handle what looks like a lot of stress on them. Sonata number 2. If you're watching it over and over again, it's probably just the first movement. The hardest movement is actually the last movement, which you probably did hear me play. I think you watched my live stream on DreamStage, or unless you bought the playback also, but you can't watch it over and over again. It's only within 48 hours. What was I gonna say? It's fine. I mean, I am very conscious of how I feel. Like just now, you'll see the vlog in the next week or so, later this month, where I was practicing this variation within Schumann's Black variations, where it's just all running notes. And I mean, it's only 2 pages with a repeat on second half of the page, but I just take a break when I feel sore. But it's the same way you feel when you exercise and you reach a certain point where you feel sore, but in a good way, like you have accomplished something rather than passing that threshold and hurting yourself. So I'm just very conscious of it, so I have not had any injuries. Except one time, but that one time, it was not because of piano, it was something else, I think. Yeah, I've never had a piano-related injury. Knock on wood. So, next, Kevin. Thank you so much for a nice comment slash message. Same thing with Nutella. Lots of Happy New Year. Good wishes, thank you. Same back to you. Si Chen. Recently came across some performance of Kreisleriana on YouTube and it sounds very dramatic. I've never heard you mention this piece in your vlogs. Is it in your repertoire? Do you have any particular comments on this piece? Okay, this is a good time for me to talk about the album. So, I know I am trying to aim for 650 patrons, but I don't want to put the pressure anymore. So I'm just gonna start talking about my album. The goal is just kind of there, but I don't want to hold the rest of you because there are 620 as of today of you, so I feel like it's only fair that I don't keep you waiting. And so Kreisleriana. If you didn't know, my solo album that I am aiming to record and release later this year will be on Schumann, just Schumann. And Schumann is my favorite composer. That is why that was the concept. And one second. It's related, hold on. So I've been kind of writing a book, but not really writing a book. This is my diary entries, and I've just been cataloging my thoughts related to Schumann and related to the album in this notebook, which I plan on releasing and publishing as part of the CD release, if that makes sense. So in here, I mentioned, I think in November, which was when I had the idea to make an album. There was a whole backstory to that, which you'll find out probably from me before this gets released. But I did consider Kreisleriana and learning that piece as a contrast, because something that I really love about Schumann is the 2 characters, Florestan and Eusebius, if you don't know. Basically, Schumann had these 2 imaginary characters. Actually, there's a 3rd one, but the most common are these 2, and he would often sign his pieces or certain movements of his music as written by one of those 2 characters, and Florestan's the dramatic, passionate one, and Eusebius is usually the dreamy, kind of idealist, romantic. They're both romantic, obviously, but then I went against Kreisleriana because I am already learning David Buntler stanza for the album, and I did not think that I would be able to learn such a complex set of pieces, Kreisleriana. It's always been the one that I didn't quite understand when I was younger, and I could see myself understanding it more now. I think it is not as easy to understand as something like Carnival, for me at least. So I knew that if I learned this piece, it would take me a long time to really get into it. And well, if it's gonna be my comeback solo album, I really want to play pieces that I'm confident in having enough time to play and learn them. So I am just doing David Buntler Tanza. Later in the year, I will hopefully be able to say that name a bit more fluently. What other common stuff on this piece? I hope to have the time to learn it. Maybe in the second half of the year, because I am aiming to record this in 3.5 months or so. But again, who knows? I'm really hoping that my original plan will work. Anyway, next question. David. Wonder if you'd ever consider doing a full-on let it all hang out fun time duet or something with Stephanie Twick? Huh? I don't want to make any assumptions about who this person is, so I have to Google this person first. Okay, ragtime jazz pianist. Hopefully everyone will understand and not be annoyed at me by me repeating this over and over again, but I really need to enter into the classical world, and if I'm going to associate myself with any musicians, they have to be up in the classical world. Up as in people who are in much more experienced states in their career. And so no. I think a lot of people have a lot of fun ideas, which in theory would be like, it'd be cool to see Tiffany do that, but I do not want to stray away from classical, because I love classical and I'm trying to establish myself in the classical world, and I'm already on YouTube, and that's already enough unclassical to the really classical minded people. Hope you understand. Don Jones, Happy New Year. Marcus, do you have any preferences on microphones or microphone placements for performances? For example, do you like a close mic sound where the piano hammer actions can be heard a little? I know the music engineers are the experts, but do you collaborate with them to achieve a specific sound? This I can talk about because I have recent experience from recording the first album that's going to come out this year first, which is the Mozart concertos along with Scarlatti and 2 duet pieces with Eric Jacobson. I recorded this in December, during that week when I played those Mozart concertos for the Dream Stage livestream concert. So actually, the few days before that, we were working, and so that was the craziest week of my year. Craziest that I've ever done. It was so much music playing, my hands were so tired, and I was so drained. But it was all for good fun, so I'm excited for everyone to hear it soon. So I am still in the editing phase, and we're very close to the final master. Something that I have noticed is that engineers, or just classical recordings in general, have a lot of reverb. And I'm not a fan of soupy piano. And turns out soupy is a word, so I am justified in saying this word because it exists. So I like to have a certain closeness for the piano, but not so much of the dampers sound, which is tricky because sometimes if you're so close to the strings, then you hear the breathing of the piano dampers, of the pedals. So I like a close sound and not so much reverb and soupiness. Depends on the repertoire also. If it's something like Mozart or Scarlatti, I really like that crispness. Not to dry points, because I know when I record at home, it's really dry and I don't add reverb, and it's not meant to be professional recording. So I'm not going to spend time, even if I know how to do it, I'm not going to spend time miking my home. So yeah, I talked to the engineers back and forth to get a certain sound, and yeah, that's my answer. Naomi, Happy New Year! I mentioned not being at the level when speaking of some major recording and or performing artists. What do you feel you need to do to grow to that level? Is it a matter of learning the repertoire? Surely it is not technique, as I think yours is brilliant. Thank you. It's not as brilliant as I would like, and there's always room for improvement. So when I say that I don't think I'm at that level, it's a matter of experience. And I can only gain that by existing on Earth and performing and doing recordings. So this is just something that I have to grow and learn from each experience. So in 2019 it was a lot of growing for me because I actually went around the world performing, and I got better each time I performed. And so, but then, pandemic hit, and so that growth kind of got cut off, and I had to grow other aspects of my life. No, I didn't have to, but I did with my YouTube and my social media stuff. But it's not a matter of learning the repertoire. I learned a lot of repertoire when I was young, where I mentioned this I think in the last Q&A, where I just learn something super quickly, I memorize it for the lesson, and then I drop it after 1 or 2 lessons and I move on to the next one. And it was just a way for me to explore and get the grasp of all the different pieces out there, because luckily piano has a lot of repertoire, and so you can never really have a piece or never get bored. You basically always can find a piece that you've not learned before. So I think repertoire wise I have a pretty wide repertoire list. So that's been helpful when I had to make programs for concerts. I could pull in different pieces. And so repertoire is not what sets me apart from the next level. It's a matter of actually experience of performing, but also on paper, the resume of what you've done. Clearly I have not done that much because, well, I was supposed to, but, as it is with everyone. And so that's why everyone is talking about my social media and my YouTube and all of that, because that is where I can actually grow to a certain extent. I'm gonna come back. I know I've been going down, but I'm very excited. Not very excited, but I'm very excited for the Schumann stuff that's coming up. And because that is the repertoire of the next live stream on DreamStage next month. So there's a lot of videos about Schumann, and so it's just exciting for me to share my passion about Schumann in these videos. So hopefully people will be excited and enjoy them and watch them, and I don't have to keep falling down the cliff of the algorithm. Next. Wes, are you doing some recording this year? Yeah, okay. In case that wasn't clear. 2 albums. One is Scarlatti Mozart, Beethoven. I always mix up this part. Taylor Coleridge. That's 1 album. That's already been recorded. Second album is the Schumann, which is the one that I'm trying to also get the budget for, but if I can do well and get enough people excited for my upcoming DreamStage live stream concert, and also any other live streams that I do in the future, then I might be able to pull in enough budget, but it's a lot of pressure for me to think about, so I appreciate you for supporting me here on Patreon, so it helps me offset the expenses, because I don't want to think about this. But anyway, those are the 2 albums that are coming out, and I am glad you're looking forward to buying them. I'm looking forward to seeing how people will react in a semi-nervous way, but in a good way, like me being nervous looking at the YouTube statistics doesn't mean as much as me looking at how people react to my music and my recording, so fingers crossed people will like them. Next, Mayumi asked, "Can you tell us how you soundproof your apartment? I see glimpses of foam. Is there anything you do to absorb the sound?" Asking because I'm desperate wanting to practice when little people are napping. So you might be able to tell by this and this. So these are curtains that are just here to divide up my apartment, obviously, because that is my bed behind. But I'm surrounded by so much cloth. You know that bit where it's not a bit, but it's become a bit of what I'm known for, to shoot under the piano. There is these foams. I can show you. Well, actually, no, I don't need to show you. They're right there. I have a layer of those because I ended up having extras, but also, remember the white curtains behind the piano? There is a bunch of foam just plaster the entire wall, along with a thick curtain, and below the piano, that's to absorb some of the vibrations. I don't know about my neighbors. I know that this dude is not in his apartment. Thank you. A good thing about the pandemic is that I think he does not live inside. I think he's somewhere else in a different place. So, that's probably why I haven't gone complained. I'm always so scared. And then I know this other side, she hears my playing, but she doesn't mind it so much. But yeah, I have foams because, okay, I got slightly roasted on Teen Vogue YouTube channel when I had that video where I talked about soundproof using these, and people were like, no, there's a difference between sound absorption and sound proof. Yes, okay, people have to, this is something that I had to look up, but I also understand why. Yeah, okay, so basically there's sound insulation, which is making the sound inside, and then there is soundproof, where it really absorbs all of the sound and doesn't let it travel out. What this does is more that it insulates inside and deadens the echoiness of concrete. That's why I have so much foam surrounded by me. I have probably 200 pieces of foam. Maybe not 200, at least 100 something. Feel free to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's already 30. I have 30, 60. Yeah, I have 150 at least. And it's about having cloth and fabric to absorb the sound so it doesn't boom everywhere. And yeah, have books if you have them, but my books are all inside a closet, so I don't have them out. Also, I don't want to see my books, my entire huge collection of books in my studio apartment, so they're all inside my closet. But that's another way to soundproof, is to really just have things deaden the echoiness and just have things absorb. It does make the apartment very dry, and I did not realize this until Jan came over to rehearse, and he was like, wow, it's so dry in here. But I think it matters a lot more for string instruments. Also, he's a fan of reverb, so just matter of taste here. It's good to practice with this dryness, because then I can hear everything that's wrong with my playing, and I can fix it a lot more efficiently than if it was just soupiness. And then everything sounds pretty, and then when it's dry, you realize how crappy you sound. So, yeah, just have a lot of fabric and books and stuff to absorb the sound. Oh, or if you really want to go into soundproofing, you can, I mean, not to even talk about the constructions, like you can put stuff behind the walls if it's your own house, you can do certain constructions, but there's also these really heavy moving blankets that you can buy on Amazon, which people have recommended to me before, but I thought, no, I think I'm good enough with all of this foam, and it does the job. So, it's dry enough here. Next. Yeah, Chicoria passed away. This is from Mayank. Any connections? Thoughts I had. I've listened to a few of his albums before in just passing. I was not like a avid follower of his music, but I do know his greatness, and yeah, it's sad. But I don't really have a lot of thoughts to say about that, sorry. Kevin, can you share info about where and how these recordings might take place, studio or hall or apartment? I already talked about the first album that I recorded in Connecticut in the hall that I played the Dream Stage live stream concert in December with the Mozart concertos. The next one, I don't know why people think I'm recording an album to be released commercially from my apartment. That is not how it works in classical world. That's a very indie poppy thing to be like recording in your bedroom, like you do you, but that's not, yeah, no. I'm gonna record it in a studio somewhere, or maybe in a hall somewhere, but I don't have any details to show or tell, because my hope is that I can record it in Germany, because I just love the atmosphere of recording German music, Schumann's, in German environments. I don't speak German still. Hopefully I can learn a lot more phrases by the time I record, but the hope is that I would do it in June, in that same trip where I'm supposed to be in Dresden for the music festival recital, but don't want to plan too much ahead because I can't travel anywhere as of right now in February, so I will tell you when I know, and when the pandemic yeah. No, it's not going to be in my apartment, in my home, because no, just no, absolutely not. So next, Yannick, did you play Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto before? Yes. What did you like or not like about it? Personally, for me, it's one of the most beautiful pieces ever written. The classic melody from the first theme, or the second theme of the first movement, it's really great how well known that is, so a lot of people can recognize that melody right away from the concerto. I played it 5 years ago, something like that, for a competition that I did not. Oh, I actually won the second prize, but it didn't actually mean anything. Just because I don't want to sound like I'm talking down on something, but literally nothing happened after I won that title. But I would love to play it with an orchestra, but for that competition I was only playing it with an accompanist. And what do I think about it? I'll be very interested in how I can play it now, because I have gotten a lot more life experiences since then, and it might give me a more in-depth understanding, perhaps, or just because back then when I played, I'm gonna say this 5 years from now about myself today, but whenever I play romantic phrases, it sounds quite immature, the kind of rubato that I do. And so whenever I learn something that I played before when I was younger that's in the romantic era, I always have to correct myself and change it up. Like the Carnival, for example, I remember when I had to learn it, when I relearned it in 2019, I had to fix a lot of stuff where I was just like, man, this is bad. That's a bad idea. Why would I do that? No one yearns like this, or things like that. So, I like the concerto. Going back to Rachmaninoff second. Can't say that it's necessarily my favorite one. If I have one. I don't know if I have one. Next, Roger. Have you ever played or performed pictures in exhibition by Mussorgsky? No. I only did one little page or half a page of the theme for, I believe, the Steinway Vault YouTube vlog when they had that pictures at exhibition $2.5 million concert ground with the really elaborate design inspired by pictures at exhibition. I will not attempt to play this piece in the near future because I don't have that robust sound yet. Hopefully one day I will have that sound, but I need to practice. I mean, in general, I always have to practice, but I'm just thinking there's a certain sound that I don't quite have yet, and if I shut off myself from YouTube for a year, maybe I can but develop that sound really. But there's like a certain sincerity and depth and thickness that my scrawny fingers can't really produce unless I maneuver my body in a certain way and develop a certain connection to the piano. But baby steps. Mussorgsky? No, I will not attempt to play this piece. It is no, I'd rather play Brahms, I think. Not to say that it's not worth playing, but just not my forte. No pun intended. Mary, would you give us the dimensions of one of your hands? What is the maximum reach thumb to pinky while playing? What is the length from wrist to top of your mid finger? I'm not actually gonna do a tape measuring because that seems so strange. It's like, I understand the curiosity, so this is not a... Look, my phone has it has a ruler. I can give you an approximate here. It's somewhere around 7 inches, I guess, because my phone is about 6 inches, so you know. And then the width, I'll just use my phone as the reference. It's also around 7 inches. I don't have a big hand, so it's not that exciting. Oh, wait. Well, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's about 7 inches because you were asking from the wrist. Yeah, it's about somewhere around 7. Next, Grant. What is the maximum number of pieces that you would work on at the same time? I don't think I have a threshold. It's more of a work on demand situation. So in 2019 in the summer, I was prepping for a competition while prepping for chamber music festival in Germany, the Morzburg. So I had like 12 pieces, 10 pieces on my radar at the same time, something like that. But there's no maximum, you know. If I really need to do that, then I will do it because that is my job and my responsibility as a musician. Sometimes it can be something as crazy as having 10-12 pieces, and with over half of them being completely new, so there's joy in that, in learning music and absorbing so much and really getting things done like that. Christine Claver Schmidt, I believe you're new here. Yeah, welcome to my Patreon. Have I ever played a piano version of Forêt Ballade? No, Forêt is not a composer that I have explored or sight read, if at all, in my life. I think I did it once, when I was like 8 years old. And that's the extent of my relationship with Fauré. One day, right now I'm in Schumann phase, and if I return to concerts, I will be playing pieces that are already in my repertoire list. So I'm not sure that I would learn new repertoire unless it's necessary, like a specific request. But I'm not opposed to it. Raymond asks, it occurred to me that your hands are miraculously performing separately. Are you ambidextrous? Doesn't that mean you can write with both hands? No, I tried to make myself like that, but I can't really write well with my left. My left is definitely dumber than my right, so answer is no. Kuropi, 25咯. Oh, hey, Chongqing. Want to ask if you have performed Hungarian Dance No. 1 or any of his dance repertoire by Brahms. I sight read it, probably. And I will look into this. Maybe I will add it to my encore repertoire. But no, I have not performed it. I haven't performed much of his solo repertoire or learned his repertoire in general. Maybe one day. Junki. J is only a Y sound in German. How do I decide which piece to play? It depends on the occasion that I'm deciding on. So I don't know if you mean which piece I play at concerts or which piece I play just in general in terms of learning. When it comes to just learning for the sake of learning, or just because I love something, that's probably the primary reason. If it's deciding which piece to play in a concert, there's a lot of factors, like is there a specific request by the presenter? Sometimes they want a certain composer, or they want a certain theme, like a festival theme that I have to structure a repertoire program concept around. So it really depends, and also on what other concerts are happening around that time. Like, I wouldn't want myself to play two completely different programs without any overlap within a week, or within even a month, or in a short period of time. So yeah, lots of factors like that come in. Sometimes I might hear a piece and I think, oh, it's so great, I want to play it, and then I play it. But it's, I guess, a matter of interest and just that instinct. Do I like it? I like it. Let me play it. Whether that's been decided from listening to a recording, or sight reading, flipping around a book, or just by chance stumbling on it somehow. Something like that. Natalie asks, in the world of classical music, is it more difficult for a non-native or non-resident to get a contract or win a contest in some countries? Or on the contrary, is the touch of exoticism an asset? Tricky question. Very problematic. There is definitely an element of politics involved when it comes to competitions. So that's that. Okay, I think what I can say about this is, if you look at any job market, if you see someone with similar characteristics as you do, whether it is as superficial as how you look, then they become your competition. So apply that kind of feeling with other fields. If you and someone else share a same skill or same quality, they become your competitor when you're trying to get the same thing. So I think that's just how it is in the marketplace of society. I can't really say this is the reason that I am successful with certain things, or this isn't, so it's not really my place to answer whether me being Asian is an asset or it is for those who think that that is the reason they admire me, I guess. It's not really something that I can quantify and say objectively or at all, because I'm not on the other side. Interesting question. Next, Mate. What is one of the most important lessons that you've learned over the past year? Standing up for my own beliefs. Whew, that was a super fast and pointed answer, but that's something that keeps coming up. And I think through my many, I think I was thinking about this and just reviewing myself and analyzing myself, is that I think I've become a little bit more confident over the past year because of the amount of times I've had to fight for myself or fight for my beliefs or my ideas. And that sounds a bit antagonistic, but I don't mean it exclusively in the antagonistic of it being certain. Like, it's not like there's so much conflict in my life that I'm like constantly fighting for myself, and I don't mean it like that. There are moments like that, but I don't mean it in a combative way. But that would be my answer. Andreas, what do you think of vegan/vegetarian nutrition? Great if it works for you or anyone who is vegan or vegetarian. Personally, I have a certain condition. I don't think I've talked about this online, where I lose energy really quickly, and it has to do with my genetics, but I have to eat meat, and it's just something that is necessary for my diet. But you know, it works differently for everyone else's bodies, so to each his own. And there are moments when I actually just don't eat meat in my meals, so it depends. But for the most part, I cannot be a vegetarian. I can be maybe for a day if I'm not doing anything, but not for my particular system. Raymond, 多謝，恭喜發財。Adrian, you mentioned reading Schumann's early letters in your IG stories. What's your favorite excerpt from the collection? I posted this on my Instagram and I believe Facebook and Twitter. Maybe not Facebook, actually. Maybe just Twitter and Instagram. And it's this letter that Schumann Robert wrote to Clara. And it is so romantic. And I don't mean in the colloquial way of romantic, but in the literary sense of being romantic. I mean, yes, they became a couple later, but I think when I posted that, a lot of them were like, oh my gosh, this is so romantic, but in the sense of romantic love relationship. But I think it is so beautiful, and I'll mention the letters probably in an upcoming YouTube video where I explain or try to explain why I love Schumann so much, so I'll bring it up again. But just the way that they write, I mean, the way he writes about his mother, if you think of it as in the crass way of romantic, then it's like horrifying. Whoa, how can you write about something like that? But back then they wrote about flowers in such a romantic way even. So yeah, I can put the link to that picture of the letter in the Patreon post. Next, Sophia. Do you still sometimes ask your former teachers for advice? Like regarding interpretation or technical difficult parts? Nope. Or your musician friends about what they think about certain interpretation? It would be interesting to know whether that's something still be done after having finished conservatory. I never really went to conservatory, but that's a different story. Because I went to Juilliard for technically part-time, but 12 years part-time is basically full-time of a limited amount of years anyway, so I don't ask my former teachers. I'm not really in contact with them so much. I've written a few emails here and there to Manuel Axe, and hopefully I can see him in Dresden because he's performing there in the same festival. It'll be nice to reconnect if it's possible at all with the pandemic situation, but musician friends about what they think about certain interpretation. When I'm playing chamber music, yes, and I'm lucky that I have met in the past when I've played chamber music in a professional setting, I can kind of communicate and get their thoughts about a certain interpretation of some pieces, but in general, no. When I was doing the editing process, not doing the editing process, but reviewing for the editing process of the album, I gave it to some friends to listen, just to ask how they think about the recording, but not something very detailed. Obviously, I can't change the way I play it anymore, but at the same time, I have asked my musician friends about some playing here and there, but no, I'd say no, not really, no. It also depends on your social circle. If you are surrounded by musician friends, I imagine that's just something that you talk about all the time. I don't really have musician friends from my school days. Actually, all of the musicians that I'm friends with are people that I've met after my school days, so. Next, Mark. Technical questions this time. I bought a Yamaha Grand. I remember this question. For my bedroom, but the piano has issues. Some keys are booming while others have a slight vibration and make a metallic sound or suddenly very loud. Tuners have tried to remedy it, but every time another issue comes up. They say it is the acoustics of the small room, but you also have a big Steinway in your studio, so I doubt whether that is the case. Do you have any experience with this? Could it really be the room? First off, I'm very sorry, but you cannot compare Yamaha with a Steinway. Because a Yamaha, the way it's the way that Yamahas are made, they are made by machines, so everything is super regulated. And it's not as variable as between Steinway pianos. So, number one, please don't compare the two brands. Also, just with any other brands, it's impossible to compare like that. So, that's one. Second, I believe your tuners are not very good, because I say this not in a way to criticize you, but I have met some tuners who cheat and who think that you don't know what's wrong with the piano and just say that it is a certain way. I have met tuners who are like that, but I am sure that you are not supposed to be cheated on, and you should I believe in your ears, because you clearly can tell me the difference and what's wrong with the piano. So trust your ears is another thing I would say. If you think something is wrong but your tuners are saying that it's not, chances are you're right. So I would say find a different technician. The problem that seems to come to mind when you mentioned that some keys are booming and some are loud and some are. If it's a matter of keys not being equal in how they sound, whether it is the way they vibrate or the way they feel, when, like the response, that's a matter of regulation. Piano regulation is when you try to make all the keys respond in an equal way and sound like sharp versus what is the opposite of sharp? Not sharp and flat in terms of the musical tone or the tuning pitch, but the timbre. So sometimes something could sound very muted, and then you've probably seen them sand the hammers to make it harder so it can be crispier sound and a sharper sound. Or they do the opposite and they poke at the hammers with little needles and to make it softer sound in the attack of the string. So that could be a possibility. Because you say some keys and you're not saying that all the keys are booming like that. Also, it depends on which register. If it's a matter of like the lower register being super boomy, that's just how a piano bass usually is. If it has a robust and it's a well-rounded piano, it should have that robustness. And if it's too much boomy for you, it would be a matter of the room. But I have some suspicions about your tuners. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's just when it's a very specialized occupation, like piano technicians, sometimes they say and do things or don't do certain things. I've had a friend before whose tuners did not do a complete job because they don't know anything about music or playing. They just have a piano for a hobby learning environment, but so I had to really sit there and stare at him to do certain things to the piano to fix it. So I would be careful about that. If it's not even, then it's not about the room. What else can I say? You can try, like I said earlier, about sound insulation and soundproofing. If you want, you can try to experiment and put a bunch of blankets and see if that affects the issue that is happening for your grand piano. And feel free to message me if you would like additional follow-up comments. But also, I'm fascinated by how piano technicians work, so these kinds of things I'm very observant about. So that was a fun question to answer. But I really, really hope your technicians are not just getting by because they think you're a certain way, because you obviously have ears and can tell the difference. So good luck. Kate, what is your sign, and do you think it influences your playing? I think just how I am influences my playing, and how I am, of course, can be categorized as a certain sign in astrology or just me as a person. It's very correct, actually, the sign. I'm a rat, if you're asking about Chinese astrology, and I'm a Capricorn. Very, very obvious that I am those two, so yeah. Next, Emil. Do you still discover new pieces of Schumann, or do you have played or heard them all? No. I, for example, did not know of this Schumann cello pieces set, which I will be playing in 5 weeks. So there's a lot of chamber music that I have not played of Schumann's. Piano-wise, no, I just learned that apparently he wrote romances, and I have never played them. So thing with piano is composers write so much that I'm still at that stage where I'm discovering new pieces. Samson. 你中意彈？你中意練? Okay, it was a comment written in Cantonese, so I'm reading it in Cantonese, but I'll translate. I think you were asking whether I like to play pretty looking or not pretty looking pianos. Okay, I think, yeah, you were saying that when you play Steinway, you think it's so beautiful of an instrument that it makes you play better in some way. Oh, because of the... Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way a piano can influence your playing, yes, it can do that kind of autocorrection where just because certain possibilities are only possible in a really beautiful, sometimes really expensive piano. So, yes. At the same time, I also think the part of being a pianist is that you are supposed to make any piano sound great, whether they are crappy or not crappy. So I think that itself is a skill, which does not apply to those who are super rich and travel with their concert grants around the world. That's a different story. So yeah, I understand what you mean by the autocorrect function of certain really nice pianos. But it's also about how you approach a piano and just that state of mind and attitude you feel. If you walk up to a piano and you already think you hate it, or if you play certain... That has happened before where, I play piano and it's just so horrible and I don't like it at all. If I continue thinking that way, I'm only going to play worse and worse. But if I think in a more sympathetic way, then I can play better. Next, Argry. Can you announce what you will play in the next concert? Yeah. Next concert will be March 21st. I'll do a separate post. I will open up a separate post for this, but just for the sake of this Q&A. Yeah, it's March 21st. Schumann, all Schumann. I play a Beck Variations, and then I play the Folkestone Stücke, something like that. Hold on. German. Vier, right? Vier Stücke im Folkestone by Schumann. It's a set of 5 pieces in a folk style of Schumann's. And then piano quartet. I will do a separate post where I talk to you and explain how this concert came about. Super funny to me, but also, yay! Yeah, I'm playing with Jan again, but also, obviously, for a piano quartet, we'll be playing with 2 other musicians. So I am excited to meet them and play this concert. I'm excited because Schumann's my favorite composer, and I was looking at... Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Because I was listening to chamber music as a way to get myself into the Schumann world. So I listened to all kinds of music, not just piano, but the chamber music stuff as well. And I wrote on Twitter that I dream of the day that I will play the piano quartet, because the 3rd movement is so beautiful. Listen to Beaux-Arts trio recording and you will understand. Whew. But at the time when I wrote that tweet, I was listening to Glenn Gould's, which is also really great if you listen on speakers. Not so much when you listen on headphones, because it's a very loud and intense recording. And so Jan saw that tweet and said, let's play. So, woo! And it will be on Sunday at 11 in the morning. Next, Jason. Aw, it's just a thank you comment. You watched my Juilliard Masters audition video. Good, I'm glad my videos made you more confident. Confidence is basically 70% of the journey. I think it permeates throughout so many tasks within the journey, but yay! Glad you got some more confidence. Okay, next. Can you elaborate a little further on it using some appropriate philosophical concept as neat? Whoa, what? Awesome one. I believe you believe that classical music should be relevant and relate to all, and that this belief is coming from your philosophy studies at Columbia. Stated this way in simple English is totally fine, but can you elaborate a little further on it using some appropriate philosophical concept as need be, so one can understand the idea somewhat more profoundly? Ugh. You see, I've gotten dumber in the past year since I have been doing so much YouTube and social media and fundraising and just a lot of social media stuff. Not that I regret any of the stuff that I did, but I know that I got dumber, and I have to say this as a preface to my answer because I say a lot now, which is so annoying, but it's a sign of my deterioration in intelligence when I hesitate a lot and say filler words like Okay. Now, on to the question. So, if you had no idea, in my senior year of college at Columbia, I majored in philosophy, and I don't have a degree in music because I chose to study philosophy full-time instead. And so during my it was around November, December. How my YouTube vlogs came about was both as a result of me running out of content to post on Tiffany Tuesdays, which was this thing I did for like 6 weeks in a row, where I just post a new video of myself playing. There's only so much you can do and while going to school, but it was just a way for me to update my profile on YouTube, because I met a concert presenter who said you should update your stuff because all of your stuff are from years ago. And so I did that. Then I ran out of content. And then I asked on Instagram, what should I do? And I ended up doing vlogs and answering. I did a Q&A video first, and then I ended up doing vlogs. And, you know, anyone can make vlogs. But I needed to think about why that makes sense for me, and whether it does at all. And I'm trying to think, hold on. Was the aesthetics class taken in the second semester or the first semester of the senior year? It's a good question. I forget the order of events, but I think somewhere also simultaneously I was taking aesthetics of... Was there a semester where I was taking 3 related courses? It's possible. So I'm trying to think if it was all in the same semester. I kind of want to say no, but I also kind of want to say yes. Maybe not, actually. Wait a minute. This is gonna bug me. I'm really tempted to try to Google this. Aesthetics of Frankfurt School. Columbia. That was the class where I attributed a lot of my... No, it's still a course offered right now, but... Spring 2017... Ah! Wait a minute. Spring 20... Huh? Wait, really? Oh, I've been mixing up my spiel for ages now. So it was my junior year. This got planted in my head in junior year? I thought it was senior year. Wow, whoa. Because I see the class curriculum. It's not offered anymore, this class. Because he retired. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought it was something springy about it. Okay, so, dial back. Spring 2017, which was my junior year second semester. But I only started doing the YouTube stuff in the fall of 2018, or really winter, like the summer. Wait, really? It was in spring 2017? Whew, I have to dig back in my essays and really try to figure this out, because I have to talk about this also on a television interview this week, so I should get my dates straight. But essentially, in that class, Aesthetics of Frankfurt School, filled with authors like Adorno, Benjamin, Krakauer, Bloch. There are a lot of people, but those are the main ones. It was basically a class where we read writings, kind of social critiques about how the society functions. And at the time of these authors, in the post-World War II, there was a lot of industrialization happening and the rise of technology affecting the way that people experience art. And that could be paintings becoming photographs, or music becoming recordings. So things can be reproduced, and I think the idea came up to me during those philosophical studies. Apparently not in my senior year, but it kind of also went on. Really? It was spring 2017? Wow, for 3 years I've been saying that it was senior year, but it isn't, apparently. In my senior year, I was also taking philosophy of art, and maybe this is another aspect that I've never talked about. So I wanted to write a senior thesis, actually, about philosophy of music, because I was in the class and I loved this professor, and she was the reason that I decided to do a major in philosophy, was because of her class in my freshman year about philosophy of art. Anyway, I wanted to write an essay about the role of the musician in this understanding of music in the philosophy world, because in philosophy papers about music, they all write about two aspects of music: the composer and the listener, but they never write about the middle person, which is the musician who carries out the music. They always think about how music is and how it should be perceived, looking at just the music rather than how it is experienced through the musician. So I think that influenced me also in the missing element of the musician and the missing human in there. But the human thing, that the dehumanization thing, that definitely came from the aesthetics class, because there was a huge concern about art being dehumanizing because of, or not art being dehumanizing, blah, blah. This is what I mean when I say that I'm not very good at this. Art was in the danger of being dehumanized, or the experience of it was in danger of being dehumanized, as well as many other things in life, because of technology and also because of socio-political reasons. But you don't experience art or creation of objects in general even on a one-to-one basis. Someone creates something, gives it to the user has that human connection with the creator right there. You know, you make something from the ground for someone back in ages ago, give it to someone, you know, there's immediate connection. Whereas with the rise of technology, you don't experience the creator anymore. You don't really have that connection anymore. So everything can be reproduced. So the relationship isn't between human and human anymore. It's just human with the object. And I think, yeah, and then the object has this reification existence where it isn't tied to the human anymore. It just exists in its own aura. I'm just using random concept words from that class, but yeah, it has its own aura that exists without the human who made it because of technology. So I was thinking the same way with classical music, because in pop music, you have that immediate one-to-one between a pop artist and the fans, or, the audience, which is not translatable to classical musicians. Obviously, because the classical musician is not playing something that they wrote themselves. So yes, we are vessels, and that's why it is frowned upon by certain people if you are too out there as a musician. Then you kind of become too egotistical, because we should just be the vessels, and music should be pure and not be contaminated by the ego in between. So that's a critique of what I do. At the same time, if you lose that human connection, then because you need musicians to play classical music for classical music to exist for the audience of the modern age. Obviously, in the historical sense, it exists. Well, there's also the question of, does music exist without the musician, or does music exist on its own because of its own unique existence as music written in the universe? Or is it just tied to the paper? That's a whole different discussion that isn't totally related to why I do my YouTube stuff and the whole mission statement that I have. So, because classical music, when I experienced it when I was a kid, I was the loner who liked classical music. People my age did not listen to classical music, and so I always felt I was just alone in my interest for classical music. And because people usually think classical music are for old people, and their parents listen to classical music but the kids don't, or the grandparents do but the younger generations don't. It's not a hip thing, and I thought it's probably because the human is missing, because the music itself is already so old. Someone really has to try to look for the existence of that music, because it doesn't get played like it does on, well, if you listen exclusively to WQXR or exclusively to classical music stations, then it exists all the time. But in the general sense of how modern society experiences music, you don't hear it all the time, and it's not the happenings of the current times. Although I have gone in a few Ubers where they play WQXR, and I'm always so impressed by that, because it's rare. So because it's so rare and you really have to look for its existence, you need someone to be the messenger and be really up there to connect with the audience and show that it is also a human form of art. It's not just something so lost in its own elite bubble experienced by white-haired people and so, or gray-haired people. And that is a really long spiel of how my philosophical studies influenced and inspired my endeavor on YouTube. I really have to fact check myself, because for the longest time I thought this aesthetics class. So I took the aesthetics, it makes sense now. I took the aesthetics class in the same semester as my cons class. I can remember it now because it was in the same classroom in my junior year, spring semester. Okay, everything is starting to make sense. But then so many factors came into why I started doing vlogs. But if you have to really understand it, then that is a more scattered and perhaps a more not well-rounded, but the larger scope of the reasons of why I did start doing the vlogs. Yeah. Okay. Whew. I will listen back and realize how horrible I am at explaining myself philosophically. That also reminds me, thank you again for your support on Patreon, because another reason why I really wanted to not worry so much about YouTube all the time, even though it is so part of my career and what I'm known for now as a classical pianist, is because I really need the time to be less dumb and think the past 10-15 minutes of me trying to explain my philosophical studies in a very long-winded way. It's a sign that I need more time to read more and to formulate sentences in a more intelligent and cohesive, just more coherent way. So I appreciate you for supporting me on Patreon. That's just another way of excuse for me to also say thank you, but I can never thank you enough. So see, I even had to look for a second. Wait, am I saying the words correct in the sentence? Yes, the saying is, can't thank you enough, because there are not enough times for me to thank you. Okay, that makes sense now. See, sometimes I have to really check myself when I say certain sentences to make sure I'm saying the correct words in the correct order. The reason why your support helps is because if a certain video doesn't do so well with ad revenue or reach or views or whatever, but it's because I spent less time into that video, because I took the time away from making that video to reading, then your support here helps to offset that. So, okay, next. Sorry, super long-winded. Andreas, another one. Okay, I explained myself what the recordings were like an hour ago, so Happy Chinese New Year, and I'm very thankful for your continued support here. Okay, Uriel, I hope you're doing well, and I wish you lots of health, good health. 更上一層樓, yay! Thank you for your support. Ronald also said, no questions, thank you. And Larry also same thing, no questions. Thank you for your nice words and kind wishes. Classical piano rarities. Have you looked at buying some pro mics at some point? Like a nice pair of omnidirectional condenser mics that are often used in recording studio. That way you could make extra high quality recordings right for Spotify from the comfort of your home. No, that is not how it works. This guy here is all I have. I'm not going to move it because it's connected. It's just an audio recorder. And I explained to myself I don't want to be miking my apartment. See, it's because I do so much on YouTube that people think that I am so indie. I use the word indie not in a derogatory sense, but it's just completely different genres of music making and process of music making. Unless I was Horowitz, you know, and brought a team to his home, to my home, to like do a whole studio recording, but no. Please, I feel like it annoys me because I can't satisfy this request when people tell me you should mic your apartment like this and make professional recording from your home and upload it on Spotify. No, then I'm not a classical musician. And then people are so offended when I say something like that because they think I'm rejecting my their request or not be willing to share music or something like that. No, it's just not how it works. It's not pop indie music making. I'm not uploading stuff from my home. But I think a lot of people will be happy that my Scarlatti will be part of this new album that's coming out with the Mozart concertos. So that's my answer to people who have always told me to just upload stuff on Spotify. Can you upload your Scarlatti to Spotify? Can you upload this to Spotify? Well, it's gonna be part of Spotify as an official recording, not a home recording. So everything will sound so much better. Short answer is no. I have no interest in miking my apartment any time ever in my life. Unless I was Horowitz at 80 years old. Then that's a whole different situation, but not in the sense of building my career this way. No. When I've established myself to a certain degree, hopefully, then yeah, I can have all kinds of requests and have all kinds of projects that look DIY but aren't DIY. But DIY is already my brand on YouTube. It's too much. And I also say this because you want to be taken seriously, or I want to be taken seriously, and that's just a whole different setup, and it's just a matter of different genre. That's it. So, whew, that was a very impassioned. Say again, another instance where I remember a word, but I don't know if I'm using it correctly. Impassioned answer. Yes, I was correct. Next, David. Hi. Thank you for your support, for your nice words about my videos and music. I'm really glad when people say both, that they enjoy my music and my videos, and it's not just they enjoy my videos. I read a comment the other day where they said, it's not your music, it's not your concerts, it's just you in your videos talking that bring me to you. And I'm like, oh no, because then you're stuck on the bridge, you're not really crossing the bridge to the music. So that's why I appreciate comments like this. Thank you, David. Tara, oh, sending a virtual hug to you too. That's so nice. It's always very nice to give hugs back in the day. It's nice. Okay, next, Richard. Oh, it's just a... Huh? I'm so happy you've reached a level where you get tech support. Huh? What tech support? I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about the fact that I am hiring people? It's not for myself, and I think some of the applications thought that they were working for me. No, it's for me for Together with Classical, the nonprofit charity that has now become 501c3. So, also, I don't have that much resources due to charity. And I'm definitely not at a level where I am paying people. So, no. I hope that the theater lights may soon come on where I can perform concerts and be do what I love. But I don't know what you're talking about in terms of tech support. Sorry. Okay, Hidekatsu. In American schools, we learn of certain major themes in literature, like man versus nature, man versus God, man versus himself. Do you think there are similar categories in music? I don't like categories. Music is music. There's so many things that are intertwined together. So I'm always a fan. Fan is not deep enough word for my admiration for German Romanticism, where they think of everything without borders and in the most idealistic sense possible. And I think of writings of Goethe and Schiller and even Schlegel, when they talk about the concept of genius and the relationship of humans or man with art and nature and the divine. So it's not one versus the other, it's just everything together and intertwined like that. Next, and there's like 3 Andreases in part of my Patreon family. Cool. What are the main differences between premium grand pianos and cheaper ones? Oh, I just realized my back is so sore because I've been talking for an hour and 24 minutes. Let me angle this so I can sit back. Difference between premium grand pianos and cheaper ones apart from the sound. How is it noticeable for a professional when playing? There's so many differences. I don't even know where to start. It's a bit like comparing premium versus cheap clothing. And materials are different, so it's gonna feel different. Possibilities are gonna be different. Longevity is gonna be different. So, okay, let me try to answer in a concrete way. Sound quality, I look at this when I say that, you know, it's like a cheap mic versus a expensive mic. That's not a difference. Sound is really the most immediate. Oh, it's like speakers. Cheap mic, not even microphones, cheap speakers or cheap earbuds, headphones versus expensive ones. A lot of it has to do with just sound. Can you notice? Yeah. Although, not all professionals can tell the same amount of nuances. So, I notice because some people can think that a certain way of playing and the sound that produces as a result is nice, whereas in actuality, but in more minute details, there's actually a lot of differences, and only some people can tell. But that's just, you know, how your ears are and how you're trained and your experiences. So it's like every other thing. Yeah, it is very noticeable. I don't know how to quantify it. I think I definitely inherited a pair of very sensitive ears from my dad. So I will say I am very aware of differences. Also, how they feel, the response of the piano keys, and the material of the key can differ, as well as, you know, everything that makes up a piano. But I think sound is the first thing. Just like speakers, differences, and microphones, differences, and yeah, sound, super immediate difference. Very hard for me to describe. But oh, okay. I've narrowed down a category where I can actually talk about the main differences. Cheaper pianos sound very brittle, and premium pianos and cheaper ones, if you're just talking about price wise, then yeah. Piano sounds very brittle and very plasticky, or just actually, it's not even plastic, it's just brittle. And it doesn't have a long, resonating sound that a piano should, whether it is a small grand or a big piano. There's a certain amount of resonance that it should have, and the cheaper, the shorter, it's just like, and responsiveness of the keys, if it's really cheap pianos, they usually don't respond well. Just like how a cheap computer has a cheaper processing a processor and a graphics card that probably doesn't even exist. It could just be integrated graphics, so then everything's super slow. Same thing with computers as it is with cheap pianos. And longevity also, it can get beaten up really quickly and then not salvageable. There's that also. So yeah, okay, those are three main differences after saying how I don't know how to answer this question for a good 5 minutes. Next. From Woods, BC. You're asking about Schubert. It's too late for me to. Oh, I better wrap this up so I can make this next video that I wanted to make. that's related to Schubert, which I'll explain in a different Patreon post. I don't understand why everyone is so obsessed with Schubert. I mean, yes, beautiful music, yes, but why is his music so requested here and there when I get requests? Horowitz played his impromptus in G flat really, really, really beautifully. My relation to his music is something that I am intrigued to find out soon-ish through a video concept slash sight reading thing that I'm going to hopefully do today. And Schumann loved Schubert, and that is the only reason that I am doing this and interested in this, just because there's so much that I want to do, and Schubert's just not really on my high priority list. Not saying that he isn't worth playing, it's just his profoundness takes time to absorb and get into, and I don't have that immediate I like you, I want to play you feeling with his music. It's just very long and intellectual music, so that's how I feel. Also don't know enough about Schubert's music in general, so limited knowledge plus limited interest equals limited possibility of playing Schubert, if that makes sense. And next question, Florian. I'll answer the first one. Did you ever consider teaching? I'm just reading the rest of your question. Nope. I've answered this before. I'm just mean. Oh, that was the last question. Super long video. I'm just mean. And there's just so many factors that affect someone's playing that it's just too much to teach about. And I'm also not at that point where I know so much about everything that I can encapsulate into a lesson. On that note, I have to continue teaching myself. That means practicing. So, thank you for your interest in my endeavors and my albums and supporting me. And if you made it this far into the video, well, you're a very special person who has so much interest in my thoughts and rambles. And I hope you have a good week. If you're still celebrating Chinese New Year, happy celebrations. Let's see what this new year will bring to a rat. Did you know the rat actually cheated in the Chinese horoscope? Not Chinese horoscope, the Chinese astrology myth? Apparently. Just funny to me. Okay. Thank you for your support. Keep striving. Bye.